Today, we're going on a guided tour of one of the most amazing pieces of engineering you could ever imagine. And the best part is, it's running inside you right now. We're talking about the body's superhighway, your circulatory system.
So let's start with a really simple question. How does your big toe get lunch? I mean, really think about it. That tiny little cell way down at the end of your foot, it needs food, it needs oxygen, and it needs someone to take out the trash. It's miles away, relatively speaking, from your lungs or your stomach. Well, the answer to that puzzle is this absolutely fascinating system.
So for our tour today, we're going to start with why this system is even necessary, the delivery problem. Then we'll meet the cargo it carries. That's the blood. We'll pop into the engine room, the heart, before exploring the highways themselves. And finally, we'll check out the incredible repair and backup systems that keep everything running smoothly. Okay, so first things first. Your body is made of trillions of cells. Trillions! And every single one of them is like a tiny little city that needs constant supplies and waste removal. For an organism as big and complex as we are, just hoping things will kind of drift into place, well, that's not going to work. We need a superhighway. And you know, any good transport system needs these three basic things, right? You need something to carry the goods, a fluid. You need something to push it all along, a pump. And of course, you need the roads for everything to travel on, a network of tubes. So, let's kick things off with the cargo itself. What are the delivery trucks driving around on this internal highway? We are talking, of course, about blood. Now, blood is so much more than just a red liquid. Technically, it's called a fluid connective tissue, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a complex, living substance that's perfectly designed to carry a massive variety of things to every nook and cranny of your body. And if you actually look at what's floating around in your blood, you can see just how specialized it is. You've got the plasma, which is the liquid part, and it carries stuff like dissolved food and waste products. But for the really critical cargo, oxygen, we've got these specialized delivery vehicles, the red blood cells. And then you have platelets, which are basically the 24/7 emergency roadside assistance crew for the whole system. So you've got your cargo, but how do you push it around a network of tubes that, if you laid it all out, would stretch around the planet twice? You need an engine, a seriously powerful, unbelievably reliable, non-stop engine. And that brings us to the heart. The real genius of the human heart is that it's not just one pump, it's two powerful pumps fused together and working in perfect sync. This design is absolutely crucial because it keeps the fresh, oxygen-rich blood coming from the lungs totally separate from the used, oxygen-poor blood coming back from the body. This separation is a huge evolutionary advantage. It means we can deliver pure, high-octane fuel to our muscles and our brain, powering everything we do with incredible efficiency.
Okay, let's follow the route. So first, all the used-up, oxygen-poor blood comes back from the body and enters the right side of the heart. The right ventricle then gives it a good push, sending it on a quick trip over to the lungs to refuel with oxygen. Then, that freshly oxygenated blood zips back to the left side of the heart. And that's where the super strong left ventricle gives it a massive shove, pumping it out to the entire body. It's this two-loop system, called double circulation, that makes the whole thing work so well.
All right, we've got our cargo and our engine. Now let's talk about the highways and roads themselves, the incredible network of blood vessels that go absolutely everywhere. So you've got two main types of roads. Think of the arteries as the big, main highways leading away from the power plant. They're under really high pressure from the heart's pumping, so they need thick, elastic walls to handle that force. Then you have the veins, which are more like the return roads. They're under much lower pressure, so their walls are thinner. But many of them have these clever little one-way valves to make sure the blood keeps flowing in the right direction and doesn't slide backwards. But the real action, the real point of the whole journey, happens on the tiny little side streets. Arteries branch out into smaller and smaller vessels until they become capillaries. These things are so narrow that red blood cells have to squeeze through in single file, and their walls are just one single cell thick. This is the perfect design for the actual drop-offs and pickups of oxygen, food, and waste. This is where the delivery happens. Now, to keep all this traffic flowing through tens of thousands of miles of tubes, you need one crucial thing: pressure. Blood pressure is exactly what it sounds like. It's the force of the blood pushing against the walls of the vessels. It's the driving force behind the entire superhighway. So how do we actually measure that force? Well, we've all had it done. When that cuff on your arm gets pumped up, what it's doing is inflating just enough to gently squeeze that main artery closed, temporarily stopping the blood flow. Then, as the cuff is slowly deflated, the doctor is listening.
The very first moment they hear the blood start to pulse through again, that's the systolic pressure. That's the peak force when your heart is actively contracting. Then they keep listening until the sound goes away completely. That point is the diastolic pressure. It's the lower background pressure in the artery when your heart is relaxed between beats.
And that's how we get those two familiar numbers. A normal, healthy reading is somewhere around 120 for the systolic, over 80 for the diastolic. It's a fantastic little snapshot of how hard your heart's working and the general condition of your arteries.
Okay, having a high-pressure system of tubes is amazing for efficiency, but it's got a weakness, right? What happens if you spring a leak? Or what about drainage? Well, it turns out the body has some really clever maintenance systems built right in.
And a leak is a huge problem. It's not just about losing the blood itself. The real danger is losing pressure. If the pressure in the system drops too much, the whole superhighway could grind to a halt.
And this is where our platelets come into play. These little guys are constantly cruising around the bloodstream, just waiting for a call. When there's an injury, they rush to the scene. They get sticky, form a temporary plug, and kick off a chemical chain reaction that creates a proper clot to seal the leak and keep the system's pressure stable. They're amazing.
But there's another whole system working in parallel. See, as blood squeezes through those tiny capillaries, a little bit of the plasma fluid naturally leaks out into the surrounding tissues. To deal with this, we have a second, separate drainage network called the lymphatic system.
So the main job of this lymphatic system is to be a drainage service. It mops up all that excess fluid and returns it safely to the bloodstream so you don't swell up. But it also has a really important side hustle. It's in charge of transporting digested fats from your intestine into the bloodstream, a job the main highway isn't really equipped for.
So when you put it all together, the multi-talented blood, the tireless double-pumped heart, the vast network of pressure pipes and return routes, plus the emergency repair crews and the backup drainage system, you get this beautiful, intricate, and incredibly resilient superhighway that works nonstop to keep you alive.
It's honestly mind-boggling. This entire complex delivery network is running on full autopilot 24/7 without you ever having to give it a single conscious thought. It just works. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible silent systems are hard at work inside you right this very second?